Folks, welcome to another edition of the Trainwreck Fantasy Football Show. It's MereKat here, joined by Chris, some guy named Steve. We're ready to fire away on all of our Week 4 fantasy advice for you guys. We're just going to go game by game, break it down, give away, some sleepers, some must-plays we have. We won't give you the obvious stuff. We're digging deep for you guys. We got the best plays coming at you. Chris, Stevie, how are you guys doing? A rough weekend in fantasy? Are you guys feeling good yourselves, confident heading into the show?
I'm feeling pretty good. I finally had a really good week. I'm in 7 leagues. I went 6 in one of my leagues last week, so we're feeling good. And now is the time of the year, right, where after the first couple fluky weeks, you start to get a feel for which guys have value. These are the weeks to go attack, make some trades. I'm excited, MereKat. The fantasy season just getting started.
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful fall day out. Might have lost a few games in fantasy this week, but like Steve said, it's trade season, so that's what we're focusing on, or at least I am.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. 2-1 in the Trainwreck League, 3-0 in Stevie's league, trying to cook it up here. I mean, we're just riding all the guys we talked about this offseason. It's nice when we do a show like this because we spend so much of the offseason just digging deep, finding what we really like, develop the guys we wanted right off the bat. No, day before printing out top 300 lists from ESPN. So, But we're ready to roll, and we'll just talk about the Thursday night matchup right now, some last-second lineup tweaks for those folks at home. Stevie, I'll let you go first. Anything in this game, that you are all over?
I'm going to say a couple things. First thing is this is the game I think you could get away with playing Trevor Lawrence. I know last week he kind of had a good matchup against the Cardinals, still didn't produce, and he's been horrible so far his rookie year. But I think this is a soft secondary with the Bengals he can take advantage of. And then Tee Higgins is out. So Tyler Boyd and Ja'Marr Chase for me are must starts for both the Bengals. I know Ja'Marr Chase is the number 11 receiver right now. Boyd's been consistent, but I expect them both to have a monster week against a Jaguars secondary that lost another member in the trade to Carolina, and they're already bad. I mean, I don't think the Jaguars have anyone in the secondary that can run with Ja'Marr Chase. So I think him and Tyler Boyd are as must start as anyone can be right now.
Yeah, Chris, you got any disagreements there with Stevie? Or?
Oh, not at all. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has had a pretty rough start. This game, I think, is going to be pretty interesting. I mean, number 1 pick versus number 1 pick, Burrow, Lawrence. That's going to be a nice storyline. I will probably stay away from either quarterback personally. I think Mixon will have a big day today. Robinson probably, but Ja'Marr Chase is slotted in every lineup I have him, so.
Yeah, I'm starting Ja'Marr Chase tonight over a guy like Deebo Samuel. And I'm still starting Burrow in my one league. I just think that gets going, even though Mixon's going to have a huge night. I think this is the first maybe breakout, though, we see out of James Robinson. As far as, Jaguars receivers, it's hard to really figure it out. I mean, you want to see Laviska used more, but he's not really good to start right now in fantasy. So I'm fading the Jaguars offense. I know you guys like Lawrence tonight. He's going to pick it up at some point, but I wouldn't touch it.
And I like Marvin Jones. He's got 28 targets through 3 weeks. He's stepped up as the clear number 1 option in the Jags offense. Chark and Shenault, I think, have higher ceilings than Jones, but right now they're both a little shaky and consistent. Jones is a safer bet.
I was a Shenault truther over the offseason. I thought he was going to have a great year. The year's still young, but he's been pretty disappointing up until this point.
Yeah, you can't deny that. He's got to get used, right? I don't think Urban Meyer's the guy. But going into the Sunday slate, next up we have Washington at Atlanta. I mean, there's some fantasy relevant guys here. Obviously, you're going to be starting your Terry McLaurin's. You're going to be starting your Calvin Ridley's, who's been a little lackluster this season, a guy I said to fade this offseason. Not that he's not a good fantasy receiver, a guy you shouldn't start, but a clear-cut number 1 fantasy guy. Matt Ryan is not the guy to give it to him. And then Kyle Pitts, guys, I mean, what's going on?
It's the classic rookie tight end off to a slow start. I'm not going to overreact to it. It's tight end's tough right now, so you probably have to start Kyle Pitts if you drafted him where you have. But I'm not going to panic. You could try to buy low on Pitts. It could be a potential move, but I don't really want any part of this Falcons team. I do kind of like Cordarrelle Patterson because he's getting the better looks in the backfield than Mike Davis. But on the other side of the ball, besides the obvious, I'm okay streaming Taylor Heineke this week. He's had 20-plus points in the last 2 weeks. Now faces a pretty bad Falcons pass defense. I know last week Daniel Jones burned me when I said he'd tear up the Falcons. So why not gamble again? Try again another bad NFC East quarterback. Give me Heineke to have another good week. Maybe a top 12 quarterback week.
Chris, anything outside of that you're looking at this matchup? I mean, do you trust anything in like Atlanta's backfield?
Yeah, I mean, the over-under is 47.5. The spread's -1. Washington's favored by 1 point. I just want to correct me if I'm wrong. Lee Smith scored a touchdown last week, didn't he?
He did.
Like,
correct.
They're using Lee
back, baby.
better than they're using Kyle Pitts. It just doesn't really make sense to me. Arthur Smith's supposed to be like this tight end guru. But, yeah, I mean, the over-under is pretty tantalizing, but you know, it's just an ugly game. I like Taylor Heineke. I think that's going to be a decent streamer. Calvin Ridley. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really like this game personally.
Yeah, the only thing I'm running with in some of my leagues is Logan Thomas. I mean, he's been solid. Heineke likes him. It's a nice, safe target, especially in the red zone. But Antonio Gibson, a little disappointing. He's still a start guy. But going into the next matchup, there's a lot of guys to be starting on one side of the ball with the Texans coming to play our Bills. I mean, outside of the obvious, Chris, I'll let you kick it off. Anything you're looking at, or is it just like start every Bill you have?
Bills plus 17. That's it.
I don't. Yeah.
Or no, Bills -17.
But yeah, I knew what you meant.
Mm-hmm.
If you want maybe a flyer, if you really need someone, you don't even have to start him. Just pick it up and stash him. Anthony Miller last week had 6 targets and scored a touchdown for the Texans. He could be potential garbage time here. If you have White covering Cooks, he's basically the only Texans feasible option right now in the receiving game. But Miller looked decent against the Panthers. I think the Bills run away with this, so it's really hard for me to say, which Bills receivers I want besides the obvious. I don't really want to take a chance on Gabe Davis, Sanders. I think you could get away starting Beasley regardless. But on the other side of the ball, because we know what Bills we're starting with, I think Anthony Miller you could stream him. I'd rather just pick him up and stash him. But that's really it. I just see some garbage time potential from him.
I see, outside of Brandon Cooks, I don't want any piece of any Texans pass catcher. We were talking about it on the cap yesterday. Yeah. It's ridiculous when you look at the stats on that team. No pass catcher other than Brandon Cooks has double-digit targets. It's insane. Just not catches, targets through 3 games. Tight end position's kind of a joke. A guy kind of as a sleeper, Brevin Jordan. I guess we might not see him as a healthy scratch finally this week. Does he break out? No, but it's a guy to watch out for, especially if you're in a deeper league. You could have used some help at tight end. Definitely someone to watch for. But other than that, I'm starting every Bills receiver other than maybe Gabriel Davis, the top 4 guys. Him. I think Emmanuel Sanders is a must start this week. After what he did last week, he's showing the connection with Allen, showing age is just a number to him. I mean, he was burning guys. He looked great. But outside of that, I have Singletary and Moss in a lot of leagues, and now I'm so split. I want to start both, I don't have both of them on a single team, but I think they're both worth a flex option if you're kind of weak there. You've seen them both put up decent fantasy points through 3 weeks, other than Moss being inactive week 1. We're not really a running offense, but we've ran a hell of a lot more this year, so who knows what's going on. And both of these backs are being used in different ways. So between Singletary's big playability and Moss's nose for the end zone, I think both are worthy of a flex option this week.
If you had to pick one, who would you take? Would you take Singletary or Moss? Because I'd go Moss.
Singletary.
You would? Okay. I just think
Moss is a little more touchdown reliant right now.
I do too, but I also think game script too. I think the Bills could get up big in this early, and that means a lot more running the ball downfield. I think that's more Zach Moss's game than Singletary. I think he's more of a big play, used in the passing game. I think Moss will probably get a few red zone carries at least, because I don't see the Texans stopping the Bills' offense whatsoever.
Right. I just want to bring up one thing. Yeah. I am pretty tight end needy in a lot of leagues, and Dawson Knox is sitting on the waiver wire in a lot of my leagues. I think the tight end, I think it was in PPR 4 or 7, something like that. I mean,
he's getting red zone targets too.
He's got 9 points, 8
Mhm.
points, 13 points. I mean, he's been pretty
6 right now. Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty good. I was
Yeah.
surprised when I saw that. He's on the waiver wire pretty much everywhere in my league, so I scooped him up everywhere I could.
Yeah, I don't mind that
that's a
play
good
at all.
call. You see how I thought Gilliam would be used more as a tight end, even though he's listed as a fullback. We're not seeing that. Tommy Sweeney, you're not really seeing that. They trust Knox. His catch rate's up. He's a red zone target. I feel like every time Knox gets a catch, it's along the sidelines and he runs a guy over with his shoulder. Like every single catch he gets. It's a guy, it shows the draft and develop strategy of Brandon Beane coming to fruition. And I think
he had a circus catch last week too. Dawson Knox had a really nice catch in the end zone last week, so promising.
Yeah, and hey, Bills defense, I'm sure a team has them, but a lot of leagues you can stream defenses a lot if they're available. It's worth a stream this week. I actually got them in one of my deeper leagues. They were a free agent, so I'm streaming them this week. It's an obvious play. It doesn't even need to be said. But next up, I wanted to talk about this one more than any other matchup. Detroit heading to Chicago. It's going to probably be a shit show of a game, but fantasy-wise, we got Deandre Swift. Deandre Swift is good. I mean, I harped it up all offseason. I got attacked by Wake. I got attacked by Jordan. I was yelling, defending my
I was on your side.
Stevie was defending me. My sweet boy who might have murdered somebody, Deandre Swift. He is a good fantasy running back, even with Jamal Williams getting a ton of carries, which I didn't expect. But Swift is still making the most of everything, especially as a receiver. I think you said to me, Stevie, he's like a Kamara light right now.
Yes.
And you're seeing it. He's running back 7. He's making the most of all of his targets. He's getting a ton from Goff with dump offs and design passes to the running back, and they're utilizing the way he should be. As a runner, you want to see him maybe get a few more touches, but he's doing the most with everything he's got. The dude's got a nose for the end zone. Deandre Swift is a must start in any fantasy league you're in at this point, I think.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I also am fine starting Jamal Williams right now until further notice. I mean, he's running back 11. Yeah, he's running back 11 right now in PPR leagues. Who would have thought the Lions would have 2 top 12 running backs 3 weeks into the season? But that's the case.
Campbell.
Yeah, and Goff is just dumping off the ball, regardless of game script. This is what I talked about in the Fantasy Fallout show on Monday. I said, regardless of game script, this is how the Lions are moving the ball. Whether it's a close game or they're getting blown out, Goff is dumping it off to Hockenson, Williams, and Swift. And I expect that to continue. I think you could start both Lions running backs with full confidence.
Definitely. Chris, anything in this game? Like, what are you keying in on? Any sleepers you got? Maybe a Lions receiver?
Man, I've been holding out for Darryl Mooney. I want him to break out so bad, but if he doesn't do something this game, you got to start thinking: is he going to go to the waiver wire? Right? If you want to pick up a Tim Patrick or something like that, and Emmanuel Sanders, because he just has been unstartable. The Bengals game, he soft secondary last week, didn't really do much. Although, it was a horrible game plan. I don't think it's so much as Mooney as a player as it is Nagy as a head coach.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying I agree.
Oh yeah, the over/under is 42, kind of low. Detroit just came off of a bad loss. I think they'll come out firing. They love to play under Dan Campbell. We've been seeing that. So I think it's going to be a close game, and that might be an upset. Detroit could pull this out.
And
sorry, Steve, go ahead.
I just want to say this is the week to buy low on Allen Robinson. He's got 21 targets so far this year, just 86 yards. Allen Robinson, he's QB proof. We saw him with Bortles. We saw him with Trubisky. He will have his big games despite the Matt Nagy offense, despite the Bears quarterback problems. This is the week to go get Allen Robinson, because if he has a great week against a bad Lions secondary, his value just doubles instantly. I think this is the week to go look at your Allen Robinson owner and just see what you could get for him.
Yeah, and I brought up Lions receivers too because there's a few guys, starting to get in the mix there with Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Quintez Cephas, not, household names, but guys who are, showing they can play. And I think after this week, we're going to have a better feel of that, Lions receiver room. And there's some guys who are on the waiver wire who are going to be worth a pickup, I think, league long, because the Lions offense has shown to be aggressive. And even though Goff's not the biggest passer right now, he's still getting targets to his receivers. But we do have a question from YouTube. Mr. Grapefruit. He's got a questions about his lineup. He's running with Mahomes, Zeke, Montgomery, Cooper, Lockett, Marvin Jones, Fant, Bengals D, and Daniel Carlson. I mean, that looks great. It's a standard league, he says, but he just is wondering, is it an issue playing Marvin Jones against that Bengals D tonight? Stevie, I know you touched on that, so.
I don't think so, just because he's the safest of the Jaguars receivers, and I think the Bengals are going to have no problem scoring on the Jaguars, which means the Jaguars can answer. This is probably the easiest matchup for Trevor Lawrence so far in his young career, and he's shown that his favorite target is Marvin Jones. So until I see otherwise, I think Marvin Jones is fine to start.
Yeah, I agree there. Mr. Grapefruit, that's a killer-looking lineup. I love Tyler Lockett this week, too. We'll get into that. But, you guys have any questions, shoot them on over. Let us know. We'll answer them for you the best we can. You might not want to listen to us all the time, but we'll give you our best foot forward. And then, so going into the next matchup, this one's probably going to have a lot of points, some fantasy-relevant players with the Panthers versus the Cowboys in Jerry World. We talked about it on Free Money Football, but the Panthers' pass defense isn't bad. It's not bad. It's really good. I think it's the least amount of yards per in the NFL allowed right now. Second or third lowest completion percentage allowed. That defense is humming, and you got a Cowboys offense that's kind of not relying on their air attack because we've seen Tony Pollard and Zeke eat this year. But that Panthers defense might give them some trouble. Are you guys fine starting, any of those big names in the Cowboys defense this week, or a little worried?
I'm fine starting CD or Amari Cooper. They're at this point where it's kind of matchup proof for me. It's just guys that I'm going to play regardless. If they're playing a game and they're healthy, I want them in my lineup. They're the clear top two targets in this offense, even before the Gallup injury, but now even more so. I'm okay with it. I know the Panthers defense has been great so far, MereKat, but they've had an easy schedule when it comes to opposing passing offenses. This is by far the hardest challenge they'll face so far this year. I'm fine playing either Cooper or CD.
Yeah, I agree. This Panthers defense is great, and they actually just traded for CJ Henderson. Yep. So, I mean, it's just a great defense gets greater. So, but I agree with Steve. You got to start CD. You got to start Amari. You got to start Zeke. Dak, on the other hand, if you have a better, option out there, possibly. But I have him in a league. I'm probably going to start him as well. So this is going to be a fun game to watch. No McCaffrey. Maybe the Sam Darnold show picks up. DJ Moore, I love. Maybe even Robbie Anderson could come to make an appearance because Trayvon Diggs is playing pretty well. So we might lock up DJ.
What do you guys think?
There's some big question marks in this game. Yeah, you would think you were just going to bring it up. Is Chubba Hubbard worth starting?
Is he worth starting this week? Because, I mean, he had, 10 points last week against the Texans and kind of a limited role. He didn't get the full workload when McCaffrey came out, but he got the lion's share of it. It's not a bad matchup against Dallas. I can see him getting around 15 points, but I'm not too excited to start Chubba just because I don't really know if he's going to get that type of workload that we saw McCaffrey get with the Panthers. Yes, Mike Davis got it last year when McCaffrey was out, but who knows this year? So I'm kind of pumping the brakes. I'm not too excited to play Chubba, but if you have to, he's fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's worthy of a flex option this week. And then, Chris, I got a question for you.
What's up?
Is Dalton Schultz a fantasy starting tight end every week coming in right now? I mean, he's tight end 5. He's getting a lot of targets in that offense. Are you okay starting Dalton Schultz?
I mean, the tight end landscape is so desolate right now. Like, if you have a guy like that that's been decent, pretty consistent, I think you have to put him in regardless of the matchup because if you have a better, like, would I play Dawson Knox right here or Dalton Schultz? So, I mean, I would probably play Knox because
Schultz.
See that's where it comes in.
I feel like his floor is higher, lower ceiling, higher floor. The guy he's a basic tight end. He kind of reminds you of Jason Witten, a little more athletic, I guess, but he's just getting targets. That Cowboys offense always loves tight ends when they have a guy who can catch the ball. I don't love it. I mean, I don't have him in any league, so I'm not worrying or stressing about it, which is something would I start Dalton Schultz or Logan Thomas, who's a little more touchdown reliant?
Right.
So there's something like that as a question where I think you're going to have to start asking yourselves if you have Schultz on your bench.
And I think the thing, too, is you also have to watch out. Blake Jarwin has a role in this offense as well. They use both tight ends in Dallas, so it's one of those things where I don't think I can trust either of the Cowboys tight ends yet until I see one emerge. And so far, it looks like Schultz is emerging, is the top tight end in that offense, but it could go either way any week.
Yeah, I agree. And so we'll head into the next matchup then. We got the Colts going to the Dolphins here. I mean, I don't have much to say on this one, guys. I'm not playing anybody in the Dolphins offense, none of their top receivers. I'm not playing Gesicki unless I need to. I'm not playing Myles Gaskin. I'm not playing Jacoby Brissett. I think the Dolphins, we don't even need to talk about unless you guys have any sleepers going on there.
I think you can get away with Jalen Waddle as a flex option. He seems like the number one option in that passing offense, even though it's a bad passing offense and they won't throw to him more than 3 yards down the field. But he's getting a lot of targets, and the thing I love about Waddle is it only takes one play for him to break like a 70-yard play. He has game-breaking speed. He's great after the catch. So even in a bad Dolphins offense, if he's getting the amount of volume that we've seen so far, I'm okay and I'm comfortable starting Jalen Waddle as like a flex option.
All right, I don't hate that. I mean, going with the Colts, though, what are we looking at there? I mean, their backfield, it's not the worst thing going. I mean, you can start Taylor. You could probably get away starting Hines if you need to right now. And then the receiver room, I mean, it hasn't been great, even though, there's a guy that looks like Pittman, like I know me and Stevie really like. I'm probably starting, Pittman. Jonathan Taylor, I'm starting. Nyheim Hines, though, if you need to, I think he's worth a flex spot this week.
I'm okay with that. I think if you drafted Taylor, you have no choice but to start him, despite him being the 28th ranked running back right now. You just have to. You have to ride it out. And Pittman, MereKat, I love him. 24 targets the last 2 weeks, 191 yards. He is the number one in this Colts offense. In the Dolphins defense, everyone talked about how good they're going to be this year. They're giving up over 400 a game. They're getting exposed in the pass defense. I like Michael Pittman as a solid wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 this week.
Yep, I agree 100% with you there. Then, Chris, what are your thoughts going on with this Colts offense? I mean, are you starting any receiver other than Pittman? Are you starting Hines? Are you starting Carson Wentz?
I'm in a particular situation where in a league I have Jonathan Taylor, and then I drafted Dobbins, and I have McCaffrey. So my running back depth is completely washed. Yeah. So I'm actually starting Taylor and Hines this week in one league. I mean, it's what I had to do.
You have to do it,
yeah. It's what I had. So besides that, I'm expecting Jonathan Taylor to have a breakout game this week, actually. DFS, I'm going to slot him in because not many people are going to be choosing him. We got to remember last year he started off pretty slow until the game started slowing down for him. I'm a big Jonathan Taylor fan, so I think this will be if there was ever a week for him to finally get things going, I think it'd be this week. And he's been catching the ball out of the backfield more, as so is Hines. So I think the running backs in Indianapolis are a good start this week.
I agree 100% there. And we're talking a duo of running backs with our next matchup here with the Browns and the Vikings. I mean, me and Stevie were gushing over this game just as a matchup to watch, to enjoy, to bet on. This is going to be a hell of a game. And you look at Cleveland's offense, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are both killing it, both top 10 running backs right now. I mean, I'm pretty sure Jordan made that one of his hot takes. Not the hottest take, but I mean, it's happening right now. You're seeing it. That offense isn't relying on Baker's arm, even though, Odell came back. He looked decent. I had him in a PPR league. I think it was 5 catches for 70-something yards. Nothing crazy, but I think Odell showed he's still a fantasy relevant receiver there. I think both of the running backs, if you have both, which I do in a league, you got to start them both. And then outside of that, though, I don't really love anything in Cleveland's offense.
I think Cleveland is just don't overthink it, right? You start the 2 running backs, you start Odell. If you have to start Baker, you start Baker, but that's really it for me. There's really no one who I think is a sleeper. Even though the Vikings defense hasn't been great so far this year, I don't really trust anyone. You don't know who's going to step up to be the Cleveland's number 4 option behind the 2 running backs and Odell, so I'm not overthinking it.
Who's their tight end over there right now?
They have Njoku and Hooper.
Yeah, I was going to say Hooper maybe. I mean, if you need to stream a tight end, I probably won't be. But, besides those 3 top options, I don't see any other player that I would run that offense.
Well, then a little trickier offense there. I believe Dalvin Cook's status is still up in the air,
right now.
but it's not looking great as of now. Alexander Madison looked great last week. The top two receivers must starts with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. I'll hit Stevie with one question about a receiver, but first, Chris, Alexander Madison. I mean, must start this week after his performance last week. If Delvin's out, or even if Delvin's in and he's a little banged up, are you still going to play Madison?
I think Madison's a spot start this week, especially if Dalvin's out. If Dalvin's not playing, or if he is playing, it depends on who else you have. But he's a great flex option, I think, even if he is playing.
And then going to receiver, Stevie, I think you know what I'm cooking up for you.
Yeah.
You have him. Is KJ Osborne a fantasy relevant receiver now? Is he a guy that you are questioning starting in your flex every week?
Not this week. Not against the Browns secondary, not against their defense. And especially if Cook is back, I don't want KJ Osborne. What I will say, though, no one you brought up, Tyler Conklin, I think you can get away with streaming at the tight end position. You saw last week he was pretty good in the receiving game. 8 targets, 7 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown. And he had 8 targets in the first 2 weeks. So 16 targets already on the year for a tight end. I think you can get away with him. I'm fine owning KJ Osborne. I want to own him in a bunch of leagues, but I'm not starting him at all against the Browns secondary.
Yeah, it seems a bit big play reliant. Brown's secondary's been good at kind of stopping that, but this is kind of a don't overthink it game. And then the next game, though, I feel like this is you have to overthink it, or you just got to wipe it away from your memory and not do anything with it. With the Giants at the Saints this week. I mean, I'm a J-Boo truther. We love J-Boo in this show with no slander, but I have him in a fantasy league with Burrow. It's the one Trainwreck league, and I've started Burrow every week, even though after Javis's first amazing week 1, he's just so shaky. I don't trust him right now. Those receivers, the targets are so inconsistent. Outside of Kamara, is there anything in this Saints offense?
I mean, Marquez Callaway finally had an okay week last week. 5 targets, 4 catches, 40 yards, and a touchdown. That's like right around 15 points, so that's fine. You're happy with that. He still is the number 1 receiver in this offense, and I think you could maybe get away with him against a Giants defense. It's not that great, but it really feels to me, MereKat, just Kamara and then no one else on the Saints side of the ball. I can't trust Jameis yet. He just hasn't been consistent enough to say he's a must-start. But if you need to, I think Callaway is a fine flex option this week.
Yeah, he needed last week to really calm down my doubts about him, because me and you were both high on him this offseason. First couple weeks, you're wondering what's going on because the ball's getting thrown all over that offense. Chris, the Saints don't look too good. I don't know if you have anything there. Giants, though, do they look any better to you? I mean,
man, no.
No.
That's it.
I don't trust anything in that offense right now. I am starting in a league where I am thin at tight end. I am starting Evan Ingram. I mean, I want to believe in him. I've drafted him every single year since he's been a rookie. It's just a roller coaster ride with him, and everyone's so down on him this year. I am too, and I don't love it.
Yeah, the only other one I'd say besides the obvious Barkley, because you'd have to start him, is Kenny Gallaudet. I think is fine. Shepard and Slayton didn't practice today, and that's big for me because if Galladay's the go-to guy and he's the only healthy receiver, it's him and Kadarius Toney. And in Gallaudet, he was limited in practice, so he didn't even have a full practice, but at least he practiced. Shepard and Slayton didn't. Gallaudet is someone I think that you can start because that's the only way that Giants are really going to move the ball outside of Barkley.
No, exactly. Barkley, even though,
I know.
Obviously, he's a high. I just wouldn't even feel. I don't feel great about anything. I know the receivers. I didn't draft any Giant receiver in any league I'm in this year across all 8 leagues. Didn't take a single one. I don't trust it. I'm not saying there isn't talent there. I don't trust Daniel Jones. I don't trust that offensive system they run there. Inconsistencies and such. Gallaudet, I love. He's a good receiver. I liked him with the Lions. He's maybe the only guy I'd go with, but this is a lineup or a matchup where I just hope I really don't have many guys other than Kamara on my roster. The next one, too, very top heavy, and then it drops off with the Titans and the Jets. Another 1 p.m. game there. I mean, you got Derrick Henry, you got Julio Jones, who me and Stevie a little victory lap on, I guess, so far. You got AJ Brown, but Anthony Firkser has been hurt, things like that. The tight end position's questionable. Ryan Tannehill, he's a good quarterback, but I don't want him as my fantasy guy. I mean, Chris, anything on like the Titans offense you are confident about, you feel good going forward with outside of that top heavy few guys?
I mean, the spread kind of is surprising to me. Titans are only favored by 6.5. I thought it would be probably higher than that. Julio's questionable, I'm pretty sure.
He's always questionable.
He will be every week. Yeah.
I mean, you have to play, if they're playing, you have to play Julio, you have to play AJ Brown, obviously Derrick Henry. Tannehill, I would be okay with streaming this week. Actually, I like Corey Davis this week. If I had to pick someone off the Jets, I think they'll have to throw the ball. I know he's their favorite target for Zach Wilson. So if they're going to be down, which I assume they will be, they're going to throw the ball a lot. And Titans don't have a great secondary. This is actually the game I'm going to pick for my survivor pool. I'm going to pick Tennessee. So,
I love Tennessee to blow them out. I really think it's just Derrick Henry and Julio Jones on the Titans side for me because A.J. Brown, I don't expect him to play. He hasn't practiced all week. And I expect the Titans to go up early. And when they go up early, they're just going to run and run and run and run. And breaking news, they have a good running back at Derrick Henry who's going to run all over this Jets defense. That's why I don't trust Tannehill. I know a lot of people are going to say it's a soft matchup against a bad Jets defense. But I'm sorry, I'm not going to put my faith in Tannehill throwing for 300 yards against the Jets team when I think the Titans blow them out.
Yeah, I agree. And then the Jets offense, I mean, there's nothing. If you guys say you're starting anyone on this Jets offense right now, I'll be disappointed.
I don't hate Chris's take on Corey Davis. I really think Corey Davis is, if the Jets want to get any type of garbage time like they did against the Panthers,
someone's got to get the yards.
Corey Davis is the guy you could trust the most to get it, but I'm not excited to start anyone on the Jets.
Well, I'm starting Corey Davis over Gaskin in a double flex.
I think
that's fine.
I think
that's fine. And a double flex, that's more than fine. We got a couple questions here though from Tyler C. We'll start out with the first one. Not from Tyler C. This is OU. We got Chubba Hubbard or James Robinson this week. That's actually a tough question for me. I mean, everybody's going to want to play Chubba. You see Christian McCaffrey's production. People are going to think he's going to replicate that. We already touched on it. And I like James Robinson to have his breakout. You know he's going to at least get his touches so he can do the most with them. Chubba, we're not completely sure how he's going to be fully utilized. For me, it's James Robinson. I don't know about you guys.
I'm with you too, MereKat. I like James Robinson. We've seen his carries and his receptions go up each week so far this year, and now he probably gets his best matchup against the Bengals defense. Chubba, the role is just unknown. Everyone expects he's going to come in and be the workhorse in Carolina, but you never know how the split's going to go. I like James Robinson. I think it's a slightly better matchup, and I think he's going to get a more trustworthy workload.
Chris?
Yep, I agree. James Robinson over Chubba. I mean, you want to start Chubba, especially since Christian McCaffrey isn't an IR. If you spent your, fab on him, you're going to want to play him. But James Robinson has the better matchup and is more likely to break out.
Yep.
Yeah, so you got it there. All three of us consensus on James Robinson. And then we got Tyler Seawing, and who's a good wide receiver to pick up off waivers in a 10-man. I mean, 10-man, you might have some options there.
Yeah.
Some guys that come to mind are, Manuel Sanders. He was under 25% rostered. He's got 6 targets every game so far this season in a high-powered air raid Bills offense. Tim Patrick, Terrace Marshall, guys you might want to start looking at adding, because their roles are picking up, whether it be injuries or just showing out. You guys have anyone off the top of your head you could think, who might be a good waiver wire add this week at receiver?
I'm trying to think of guys right around kind of like the 50% ownership mark, because that's somewhere like in a 10-team league. I would say maybe, I don't know, someone like a Hunter Renfrow, Christian Kirk around there. Yeah. Jacoby Myers, we talked about on the Fantasy Fallout on Monday. If he's available, he's the number one in New England. He's in 67% of leagues he's owned, so still a third of leagues he's available. And then guys are giving up on the Jaguars receivers. You've seen Chenault and DJ Chark's ownership drop, and maybe even before Thursday night game, sneak them in, play them in a good matchup. But other than that, it's kind of tough to say without knowing who's available in waivers, because you never know, MereKat. League by league, you just see someone and you're like, oh, that guy easily, that's the guy you want to pick up.
Right.
But when it's just what wide receiver is to pick up, I don't really know, because I'm in so many different type of leagues where the waivers are completely different in all of them.
Yeah,
it's weird.
I like the Tim Patrick pick, MereKat. I think Hamler just had a horrible injury.
Yeah.
And Sutton is a beast, but they have to throw the ball to more than just Courtney Sutton. So I think Tim Patrick's going to be a very consistent option from here on forward.
I like that.
I like that a lot too. Okay, questions are flowing in right now. We got a few more. Pick 3 right now. Wide receiver 1, a 2, and a flex from D-Hop, Amari Cooper, Brandon Cooks, Emmanuel Sanders, and Corey Davis. All guys we've pretty much talked about on the show so far today, other than D-Hop. For me, I'm going with D-Hop, Amari Cooper, and Brandon Cooks there. That's a lethal top 3 to me. Brandon Cooks is going to get his targets. The Texans might get some garbage yards, but Cooks will get his targets. You already see him, I think, 36 targets on the season so far. Bad offense, gonna get his touches. Amari Cooper, Stevie touchdown. He loves him tonight. Not tonight, this week. He's gonna be fine in that offense against the Panthers. Pretty good secondary. And then D-Hop. AJ Green's been showing out. Christian Kirk's been showing out. Rondale Moore's been showing out. But it's D-Hop. D-Hop's a guy you can't have sit on your bench, because he's going to have that 20, 25-point week multiple times in a season, and you don't want to miss out on that one. Do you guys disagree with any of those?
The only thing I'll say is for Brandon Cooks and D-Hop, I think the reason he's asking this is because D-Hop's probably going to be covered by Jalen Ramsey the whole game, but D-Hop is in that area of receivers, the top 5 where I'm playing him regardless of matchup. I know Ramsey kind of shut him down a little bit last year, but just play D-Hop. He could get his, and he could even be lined up in the slot sometimes to get stats. He did that against the Rams last year when he wasn't lined up against Ramsey. And then Brandon Cooks, he may be covered by Trey White, but another similar. In the slot, they're going to use him in different ways, and the only way the Texans have been moving the ball down the field this year is through Cooks. The only one I may switch with you, MereKat, I may be inclined to take Emmanuel Sanders over Brandon Cooks, just because I really liked what I saw from him last week. He looks like he is a big part of the Bills' passing offense now, and I'm okay with that swap, but you have to start D-Hop and Amari Cooper.
No, I agree there. Chris, any objections, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I agree.
I know you like Corey.
Yeah, I like Corey, but out of these guys, I mean, D-Hop, Amari are an automatic slot in. Yeah. Brandon Cooks, you're a bit worried because Trey will be on him, but once we're in prevent defense in the second quarter, he'll get some soft targets, some soft receptions. Depends on if it's PPR, half PPR. Just off the cuff, I would say D-Hop, Amari, Brandon.
All right. Yeah, we're all good there. We got a lot of questions right now. We got 3 more, so I'll answer one. Stevie, you answer the next. Chris, you got the third. First up, from C. Fran, the man, he's got Ridley, Evans, Thielen, Debo, Ayuk, Cooks, and Shepard. That's a nice deep wide receiver lineup there for a PPR league. Should he try to trade Debo and Thielen for Diggs? It's tough to say. I'm not a huge believer in the 49ers offense right now. I do like Debo. I do like Ayuk. I own them in a lot of leagues. But when you're looking at their production, it can definitely be inconsistent because you're looking at quarterback. Thielen, that on the other hand, kind of the same boat. You're seeing KJ Osborne break out. Justin Jefferson's going to have his monster games. Kirk playing like an MVP right now might not keep up. And Diggs, not playing like the best receiver in the league like the guy who was last year. It's not because of his play, just things haven't gone his way so far. He's being covered very hard. Just some bad passes to him, to be honest. I'd consider that trade. You're giving up a lot, but based off of just feeling more comfortable at the receiver position, you being deep already and having Ayuk, I'm okay making that trade. And then kicking this one off to Stevie from Lee Shakir. He's in a 10-man PPR league. Should he trade Edmonds, I'm assuming Chase, for Mike Evans? He's got Kamara, Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, CD, and Hopkins.
I would do that trade in a heartbeat. I mean, I like Chase Edmonds. He's been solid so far this year, but we saw last week James Conner got the goal line work, and that's concerning for me because that's not a lot of touchdowns Edmonds' way. Mike Evans is a guy who can get you 40 points in a week. He's inconsistent, but it's okay because you have Kamara and Chubb and JT as your running back, so you're fine there. And CD and Hopkins, you're telling me Mike Evans is your number 3. I love that trade. I'd do it in a heartbeat.
I don't disagree there. And then Chris, pick 3 to start. Keenan Allen, Tyler Boyd, Deontay Johnson, Julio Jones, or Cole Beasley. Full PPR. Pick your 3.
Man, I'm going to go Keenan, Deontay, and Beaslly.
All right. And then Chase Brown, if Chris screws you over here, let us know and we'll fire him. We got your back. Just another quick one we could touch on: Chris Carson or DJ Moore in a flex.
I love DJ Moore.
Chris Carson, I feel like a little more stable there if you're running it in a flex. I'm not sure if it's a PPR or not, but. I'm a little against you there. I'm going Carson. Don't hate Moore. Both of them, I think you're fine. Carson's just a little safer. Chris?
Yeah, I like DJ Moore. It depends, Are we talking about a trade or
I think it's starting.
I think he's talking about a flex spot. Yeah, that's what I would assume.
DJ Moore going against the Cowboys.
With no CMC, too. That's why I like DJ Moore. He's going to be the number 1 option.
I would side with DJ Moore.
Yeah, okay. I'm fading you guys, but I don't disagree
Fade
with
Stevie.
you guys. It's real close to me. Fade Stevie, baby. We're all caught up on questions, I believe, so we'll head into our next matchup here. Me and Stevie got some darlings in this one. A lot to talk about, but we got the Chiefs at the Philadelphia Eagles. Chris, I'll let you kick it off. Anything in this game you're like, all right, I need to start this guy?
Need to start. Well, Jalen Hurts. Well, if you have him, you're most likely starting him. They'll be playing from behind most likely all game. So I would start Jalen Hurts. I would consider Devonta Smith. He had a kind of, since week 1, he's been a little iffy.
Yeah.
If there was ever a game for him to bounce back, it would be this one.
Yeah, I'm on the Jalen Hurts train. Stevie's on the Jalen Hurts train. I think I have Hurts in 6 of my 8 fantasy leagues as my starting QB right now. I'm heavily invested in him. Don't love any Philly receiver, but if I did, it would be Devonta Smith. He's a guy who, isn't an auto start right now in some leagues, most leagues probably for guys, depending where you took him, how your team's played out. But I'd say he's worth a start this week because I think Philly keeps it a little closer than people think. Even though me and Stevie both were talking about this on the Free Money Football show that Chiefs, this is their get right game.
Yeah.
But if Philly's playing from behind, Jalen Hurts needs his get right game. I think Devonta Smith might be worth it. But I'm not touching a Philly running back right now. Miles Sanders, it sucks because you probably drafted him pretty high. I wouldn't start him this week after you saw Nick Sirianni's play calling last week. Now they should try to make that right. But right now, you can't trust it, in my opinion. Stevie, what are you thinking on this matchup here?
I was actually going to bring that up. I can't trust Miles Sanders this week. He had 2 carries last week. I just can't do it, and I think the Chiefs get up big and get up early. And when they do that, I just think it takes the run game out. And you saw against Dallas, that's kind of what happened. The Cowboys got up pretty big, and the run game just didn't exist. Jalen Hurts just dropped back. They were looking for passes, and he'd roll out if he had to. I'm okay starting Hurts. I'm okay starting Devonta Smith. Maybe Jalen Reagor if you have to, but I'm not touching an Eagles running back.
No, 100% with you there. And then, talking about KC, obviously Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, we don't even need to talk about them. You're starting them if you have them. Outside of that, though, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, big question marks there going around with him. Another guy who probably got a bit overdrafted this offseason. I feel like you got to start him against Philly right now, but he's a guy where you got to start putting some question marks there, and then especially, too, with the receivers behind Tyreek Hill right now because it's inconsistent. You're not Patrick Mahomes, it isn't himself. Are you guys fine starting Mecole Hardman this week if you had him?
I can't do it. I think for the Chiefs, I'm just not going to overthink it. If I have the big three, I'm starting the big three. And then if you have Clyde, I guess you have to start him. But until I see something for the Chiefs, like secondary receivers, I can't trust Mecole Hardman.
Chris,
I agree with that. Outside of Tyreek, I mean, Clyde, I would almost say that I would rather start Miles Sanders over Clyde. Well, the dude had he had 13, he had 2 carries, he had 26 yards. They gotta give him the ball a bit more. I think the Chiefs have kind of a cupcake running defense.
Yep.
I'm also just kind of biased against Clyde, so.
No, I was never a huge Clyde guy either. The only reason he had value is because he's just the Chiefs starting running back. Whoever's the Chiefs starting running back has fantasy value. I don't think he's that talented, so I don't hate that take, Chris. I don't know if I could go as far as saying Sanders over Clyde, but I don't love either this week.
Well, I feel like all the tight end questions I focused towards Chris, so I got another one here from the chat. Gronk or Mark Andrews? I mean, you might think, Gronk's the second fantasy tight end right now. He's the must start, but what are you thinking on this?
I'm thinking outside the box here.
Ooh.
Gronk and Brady going back to New England. I think he's got at least one tug in him.
Yeah. I like
that makes sense.
And Mark Andrews
you think Gronk doesn't want to spike it in that end zone?
Exactly. And Mark Andrews is facing a tough Broncos defense so far. Yes, they played a cupcake schedule, but they're a very good defense.
And I'm with you guys. Start Gronk, and I mean, hey, you got Gronk and Mark Andrews. You're fine at tight end. I'm jealous of you. Heading into our next matchup, we're starting to wind down with the final handful or so. Cardinals, Rams. I mean, Stevie, I'm just gonna let you kick it off.
So, I mean, for the Rams, I think it's pretty simple. You start Matt Stafford, you start Cooper Kupp, you start Robert Woods. I know Woods has been a little disappointing, but he will get involved in this offense. He'll have his big week. You probably have to start Tyler Higbee. He's the number 12 tight end right now. He was good last week. I think he's getting targeted in the red zone, so I'm fine with that. Daryl Henderson is a big question mark for me. I mean, it's just a limited in practice all week. Sony Michel is getting involved in the offense more and more each week. He didn't really have a choice last week because Henderson didn't play. But I don't want to start either of the Rams running backs. I'm starting Woods. I'm starting Kupp. I'm starting Higbee. I'm starting Stafford.
Yeah, I'm fine starting Higbee. Higbee's starting to come into it as long as he stays healthy. I love that. Kupp, you got to start. I mean, you can starting to look a little deeper in your deeper leagues at some guys. Like Van Jefferson's a guy who I have on my bench. Deshaun Jackson now just out of the clouds. I forgot he was on the Rams, and he's
big week last week too.
I can still drop 75-yard touchdowns like it was 10 years ago. Chris, what, you disagree with anything Stevie's saying? You fine riding this Rams offense right now against a weak Cardinals D?
Yeah, I'm completely that's completely like the way to go this game. I want to just bring up, I know I'm spitting hot takes left and right today, but
that's fine.
Kyler, I mean, LA kind of has Kyler's number. I mean, every time they play the Cardinals, Kyler doesn't really have a great game. I'm looking at the last year, he had 18 points and 4 points the 2 times they played. So will that scare you off from any Cardinal receiver that's not Hopkins?
It's a little bit, because it's tough to trust which one's going to be the number 2 on a given week. It looks like Rondale Moore sometimes, then it looks like Kirk, then it looks like AJ Green, and the Rams have one of the better secondaries in football. So I think it's fine to just not start any of the second receivers in Arizona and just start Hopkins. But even though Kyler Murray has struggled against the Rams in his career, I think, Chris, you have to start him. You can't, bench him and then kick yourself when he has 25 points or he runs for 60 yards and 2 scores. You have to start him, despite struggles last season.
Yeah, even with this matchup, I think you got to start Kyler. And D-Hop, a little disappointing so far, I guess. But, we talked about him already. You have to start him. Other than that, those top 3 Cardinals receivers, I'm fine having any of them with Rondale Moore, Christian Kirk, and AJ Green on my bench and starting them in a pinch if I need to, but I'm not starting them this week against the Rams defense.
What about Chase Edmonds? Are you going to start Chase Edmonds this week?
No,
The Rams
I'm not
haven't
touching
been
Chase Edmonds.
great against running backs. He's probably going to get a lot of looks, but yeah, I don't think I can start him either.
I think this is a Kyler hero ball game where Kyler might be the leading carry guy on the team when all is said and done with this one. And we got some more questions coming in. Tron's got 2 for us quick. Should he start Burrow and Boyd? We talked about that already. I think
it.
Jamar Chase is more the guy you want, but Tyler Boyd is a red zone target for Burrow. He's still, a top receiver in that offense. I like Burrow tonight. I think you got to go there. And then Tron also with, should he drop Tannehill for Cousins at this point? He's got Julio and AJ in their injury, and he doesn't trust Tannehill after a slow start. I think you're fine on Julio and AJ's injuries. I don't think those are a massive concern, but I don't know if you drop Tannehill. I don't love Tannehill. I don't want him on my teams, but Cousins is the go-to.
You have to pick him up.
If you don't,
have to pick him up.
Even if he doesn't keep this MVP pace, he's going to be a good fantasy quarterback. We talked about that this offseason where it's fine to hate the guy, but stats-wise, fantasy production-wise, last year he was good. This year he's great so far. You got to put bias aside and have Kirk Cousins on your roster, in my opinion.
And he's got great weapons. He's got great weapons around him. Jefferson, Thielen, KJ Osborne, Dalvin Cook, Madison. He's going to get points regardless. And I would rather have Cousins over Tannehill. But if you don't have to drop Tannehill, just do what you can to pick up Cousins.
Yep, I agree there. And so now we head into the next 4:05 game we got. It's the Seahawks, the 49ers in San Francisco. I feel like, you got your first sure guys here. You know who you're going to start, which is basically just Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, most likely Chris Carson, unless you're deep at running back somehow. And he's not worthy of a start, which I could see in some leagues for sure. Some people aren't a big Chris Carson fan. But outside of that, there's a ton of question marks. I mean, Tyler Lockett could throw up 30 points. He could throw up 4 again.
I think you can still get away with starting him.
I think you're fine starting him. Yeah, I like Tyler Lockett this weekend. I wanted to say where he's inconsistent, you might question starting him some weeks, but this is a week you start him. I think Gerald Everett's a guy now you have to start looking at. Stevie, you probably know a lot about him coming from the Rams. Are you cool starting Gerald Everett over starting guys? I mean, is he a top 10 tight end?
Well, I think Everett is on the COVID list right now. So that's a big no for me. I'm pretty sure he's on the COVID list. I think he was put on it yesterday. So I don't think he's going to be able to play. But going forward, it's his involvement in the offense. He only has 9 targets so far. The Seahawks really haven't looked his way. But he's super athletic, and he's a big play tight end. So maybe down the line he's someone to look at streaming. But short term, I can't trust Everett yet.
See, I like, the sneaky Seahawks tight end Russell Wilson here and there, really feeding them. I think Everett's probably the best tight end option he's had in a while. I'm a little over-biased on him. I like Gerald Everett for some reason. I didn't know. I just saw, yesterday afternoon he tested positive. I got to change a couple lineups. That's something I wouldn't have known until my final check Sunday morning. So that's good to know now. But you're looking at the 49ers, I mean, tons of question at running back, constant injuries, and then they got their top 2 big receivers with Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and, George Kittle.
Yeah.
I'm not starting a 49ers tight end. If you guys say you're starting Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm going to leave the show right now. But what on the 49ers offense are you looking to start? Are you fine starting both of those receivers? What running backs are you looking for?
I am only starting Deebo or Kittle. I don't want to touch the backfield until I see what happens in it again. Sermon looked okay against the Packers, but it didn't wow me, and Mitchell should be back this week. Who knows? I'm just staying away from that backfield, and I can't trust Ayuk yet either to start him.
Yeah, I mean, Ayuk is someone that I invest a lot of draft capital in this offseason. Yeah. It was nice to see him catch a little smoke last week. He caught a touchdown. This is a week that if I needed to slot Ayuk in, I will. I need to double check. But I'm expecting both of those receivers to have at least a little bit of production. So keep your eye on Ayuk, because if he does go off this week, then it's the green light to start him.
That's fair.
That's what I'm waiting for exactly, is the one more, Ayuk week in a row where he is a decent fantasy receiver. I love him. He's got all the talent in the world, but you saw a lot of questions with him to start the season, getting called out by Harbaugh saying he's not a number one receiver right now, type of things. And I think that would have been a fire under his ass. You love to see it, but I'm not touching any running back. Trey Sermon, I guess, would be the guy I'd go with, but you worry about fumbles with him, and he's just not a guy you want to be starting right now this early in the season. You're down bad if you're starting Trey Sermon, I'm sorry to say. And we got another question from the viewers. Drew Charlton, he's got Sutton, Chubb, and Darren Waller, and CMC. Sutton, Chubb for Darren Waller and CMC. Good trade in PPR there. So Sutton, you're giving up a big receiver. Chubb, you're giving up a monster running back. But CMC, his injury, is he going to come back? Okay, will he be back soon enough for it to be worth it? Because I think getting Waller as your pass catcher in exchange for Sutton is – you got to be ecstatic if you're going to execute that deal. But then it's mainly the question, does Chubb's value being healthy right now outweigh CMC's potential when he returns and the little extra weight from Waller?
I think this is kind of a decent discount to get CMC at. I don't think he'll be out too long. And Darren Waller gives you a huge advantage at a bad position tight end. Now you have a stud there who's basically another wide receiver. Yes, Courtney Sutton has looked good so far, but it's still the Broncos offense. I don't think he's going to be the dominant receiver, but I think he'll be a solid receiver. And rest of the year, I would take CMC over Chubb in just a nutshell. So I like this deal. I would take the deal.
Yeah, I'm taking it.
I would pull the trigger. I mean, they had the opportunity to put CMC on IR today or a couple days ago, and they didn't. So he's going to be out for less than 3.
Yeah, you worry a little bit about him, because people were saying this offseason, you got to worry about CMC being the top overall pick because of injury history. And it's like he didn't miss any games up until last year. And then he gets an injury like this right off the rip where it looked bad, not as bad as originally thought, but you kind of got that little, monkey on your shoulder where you're like, ooh, is everything going to be okay?
Right.
We got another question before we head into our next matchup. Chris Carson or Saquon Barkley? This is actually a really good question, in my opinion, because people are down on Carson. His usage is all over the place. And then Saquon, is he going to be Saquon, or is he going to be the injured guy behind the bad offensive line?
I don't love either matchup either. I think I have to go Saquon just because I know he's more talented than Chris Carson, and he has potential to have a breakout week. He looked much better last week than he had the first 2 weeks, so I would go Saquon. I don't love it, but
Chris?
Yeah, I would go Saquon too, especially if those receivers are hurt. I'm expecting to catch some dump-offs if they've got some.
Okay, yeah.
I'm going against you guys here. I like Carson this week a little bit. I just like the Seahawks offense. I like Chris Carson. He's going to have those weeks. I think his floor is a little higher, a bit of a safer pick. But CMC Barkley could outrush, Carson for the week on one carry. He's got that breakout potential. Right. So it's kind of how risky are you feeling? If you want to play it a little safer, I think it's Carson. But either play, you're probably going to get similar production out of them, assuming this week. But now we head into our next matchup. Keep the questions coming too, guys, if you want to. We love answering them. We got Baltimore versus Denver, a weird one here. You got a lot of big injuries now for Denver starting to pile up on defense. That ironclad defense is starting to get some big guys out. You got Jerry Jeudy out. You got KJ Hamler out on that offense. The backfield, you're not getting, production out of Javonte Williams. Most people hope for. I'll let you kick it off, Chris. I mean, anything on either side of the ball outside of, the Lamars and such, a Ravens receiver, Broncos offensive player, what are you looking at?
Well, the first thing that catches my eye, do you guys know what the spread is?
I believe it's like a 1 point spread.
One and a half. One and a half or one.
That is crazy to me. That was the first thing that caught my mind. I mean, Lamar is an obvious start. If you have kind of a thin bench, right, and you need a wide receiver to pick up, Rashad Bateman was just taken off of IR. He's probably going to be on almost every single waiver wire, depending on how they're in the league. Over under 45. Denver's got a pretty decent defense. This spread is rattling me. I'm not going to lie. I need to go to the creek right now.
Get Chris to the creek.
But yeah, Lamar, I mean, I don't know. Courtney Sutton, obviously, you're right, but he's going to be Marlon Humphrey's going to be on him. Just kind of seems like an under game to me.
That's kind of how it feels to me, too.
Is it full fade, too, on Marquise Brown?
I'm fading.
Patrick Surtain.
Yep. I'm fading against this Broncos secondary. The Ravens are a run-first football team. They aren't usually a vertical passing offense, and I'm fading Marquise Brown. I'm fading Sammy Watkins. I don't even trust Tyson Williams. Really, on the Ravens, the only guys that start are the obvious, Lamar and Mark Andrews. The Broncos have a really good defense, and the Ravens also have a pretty good defense, and they're going to be pretty good at stopping what Denver wants to do. So it's really hard for me to justify starting anyone on Denver besides maybe Noah Fant, because you need that tight end position. You really don't have the luxury to not start Noah Fant. But other than that, MereKat, I don't really like anyone in this game.
No, there's no one I love in this game. Noah Fant, I am starting in a bunch of leagues because I usually wait to take tight end later. You can occasionally stream them. But for the Ravens, not a single pass catcher until Rashad Bateman gets in that lineup and up to speed. Maybe Tyson Williams, if you need a flex this week. Last week he barely got anything. But he was bad. But week 2 he looked pretty solid. I wouldn't love the play, but
MereKat. MereKat got kicked out by his Wi-Fi. All right, we can move on to the next game, Chris. We got the Steelers and the Packers. Anyone you like there besides the obvious Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams? The Steelers are interesting, I think.
They are. I like Najee, obviously, right? You're talking about it. He had 18, 19 targets last week. This should be a shootout. Green Bay has a great offense. I also like Deontay Johnson coming off of injury. He's a target hog. Maybe that might take away some targets from Najee Harris. But, Deontay was a top, I would say, 8 receiver before he got hurt, at least in PPR. So that's an automatic slot in for me.
He's your favorite of the 3 receivers in Pittsburgh, right? Yeah, that's how I am too. I think Deontay and Najee, and then on the other side of the ball, I think it's pretty obvious, just the 3 Packers studs, Rodgers, Jones, Davante Adams. There's really no sleepers here. They're both top-heavy teams with really good star power, but there's not as deep as most teams.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see that Packers behind Davante Adams receiver room kind of work itself out. I've been waiting to see Amari Rodgers take that next step. I like Allen Lazard, even though he's not great. Hate MVS. You want to see it. Randall Cobb, even, you throw it in there. That's a receiver room I'm going to wait a couple more weeks on to maybe make a waiver wire move here or there. But nothing I love. Najee, he got his targets last week, but that offensive line I don't love, and you can't expect him to get double-digit catches every week at the type of running back he is, and especially in that offense. No faith in Ben. I'm pretty much playing Deontay Johnson. Maybe a Pat Freiermuth if you're low on tight end and you're feeling a bit frisky there. But Steelers
is Johnson
offense,
your
man.
favorite receiver of the Steelers?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He is.
Okay. So we're all in agreement there.
I like their depth there. I like Chase Claypool. I like James Washington. I hate Juju Smith. But they have so much talent on that offense since being wasted by Ben Roethlisberger right now. It kind of reminds me of Atlanta, but worse. I don't love it. And then we got some more questions coming in. We got 2 from James. I'll give the first one to Chris and the second one to Stevie. Start Chris Godwin or CeeDee Lamb this week?
Man, I think I'm going to lean towards Godwin just because I'm expecting Brady to throw 20 touchdowns.
Yeah, that makes sense. One of those receivers is going to blow up this week, if not multiple. Godwin's a reliable guy to bet on there. And CeeDee against that Panthers defense, you're not sure exactly where you get. You trust in Cooper. CeeDee should be fine, but you're never certain there. And then for Stevie, Pitts, Higbee. I know where you're at.
I still have to go Higbee right here. I think Pitts has a higher ceiling, but Higbee's role is kind of more, I guess, known or sure than Pitts right now. The Falcons' offense is a mess. The Rams' offense has been great so far. I expect a very high-scoring game in the Rams-Cardinals, so I expect Higbee to at least get some red zone targets and hopefully get a touchdown for you.
Yep, I kind of agree with you there because Pitts, you just can't trust yet. He's not a guy you should be starting, and if you drafted him in the top few rounds, I'm so sorry for you.
But Chris said it. Brady is going to throw 20 touchdowns. Buccaneers, New England Patriots at Foxborough Sunday night. I can't wait to watch it. I'm betting on the Buccaneers. I'm taking them. It's going to be a fun game to watch. As much as we hate Brady, I'm starting to like him now. Tom's a bit fun, and I want him to decimate New England. I personally want him. If you have Chris Godwin, if you got Mike Evans, if you have Antonio Brown, if you have Rob Gronkowski, you start all of them. I mean, you start any single one of those guys this week. Brady is a start QB. The backfield, it's still really not worked itself out with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette and everything going on there. Don't love that. Not touching the backfield for them. But are we all in sync that all four of those top Tampa pass catchers, if you have them, you should be starting them this week?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's pretty simple. Brady going to New England. He wants to put on a show, and he's going to with these elite weapons he has. I'm not touching the backfield. If you can bench Fournette. I can't trust him.
And Chris, so we got you on record now, 20 touchdowns. How many fantasy points?
No, I wouldn't be surprised if after this game people will talk about Tom Brady and the MVP conversation by the end of the year.
Okay.
That definitely makes sense. Then on the other side of the ball, the New England Patriots, I'm a big Jacoby Myers guy. I have him in a few leagues. I just kind of want to start him because he's going to get the targets and such. But I saw a crazy stat about him this week. I think he has the most catches ever for an NFL receiver without a touchdown. And that's not great for fantasy. As a PPR guy, I think he's a definite consideration as a wide receiver too. If you got questions at flex, you throw him in because he's going to get targets, even though Jones might not perform to the best of his abilities against that Tampa pass rush and secondary. It's not like he's going to do nothing, and I feel like that's the safest option is starting Myers. But the running back room, Damien Harris, a guy I know people were high on this offseason. Are you guys fine starting Damien Harris, or is it time to start? Yeah.
Not this week. I mean, the Bucs have a great run defense, and Damien Harris is a up-the-middle, downhill runner. It's not going to work against the Bucs front seven. I'm not starting anyone on New England besides Jacoby Myers. But what I would say is look at these other New England running backs to maybe pick up and stash because James White's out for the year now. They need a pass-catching back. Damien Harris will not do that. So maybe Ramondre Stevenson or even J.J. Taylor is someone maybe worth in a deep league taking a flyer on and just stashing on your bench.
Yeah. Neither one of you guys are starting McCorkle?
Nope. No.
I have Damien Harris in a few leagues, and since McCaffrey's hurt, I have to play him as my running back too. So
it's not the worst play.
You could just hope he gets a touchdown, right? That's how it gets his value.
All into the end zone.
All right, so we're all in on the Bucs. We're fading the Patriots for the most part, and then our last matchup of the week before we wrap things up, we got to talk about Monday Night Football. Another game I know me and Stevie are just pumped to watch to see because this is going to be good football. You have the Las Vegas Raiders traveling to LA to face the Chargers, two teams in newer cities now, and both looking great this season. We're getting Justin Herbert at what we kind of expected. Joe Staley has that Chargers team looking good, and you have the Raiders looking like world beaters right now. I mean, Derek Carr, people are talking about him in the early MVP consideration right now. I'll let you kick it off there, Stevie. I know there's the obvious guys. I mean, you're going to start Herbert, but Carr? Are you starting Carr? Are you starting these Ravens receivers? Their backfield? Raiders, apologies. Because honestly, fantasy-wise, there's a lot of question marks other than Darren Waller on this Raiders offense.
Yeah, there is. And I will say I wasn't too big on him in the offseason, but Henry Ruggs is starting to get involved in this offense. Last 2 weeks, 14 targets, 190-plus yards, and a touchdown. And he's like who I talked about earlier, Jalen Waddle. It only takes one big play for him to get his fantasy value for the week. I think Ruggs is a sneaky start in this Monday night game, which I expect to be high-scoring. It feels like the Raiders always seem to play high-scoring primetime games. They always play great ones. And Hunter Renfrow is someone maybe you can consider. I like Ruggs more than Renfrow, but in PPR leagues, Renfrow has had double-digit points in every week so far, and he has 22 targets on the year.
Yeah, Renfro's a guy who I think is being slept on heavily across the league. He's a good receiver. He's been doing it now for a while. He's got a great relationship with Carr. Outside of Renfro, outside of Ruggs, I like Brian Edwards, but we're not seeing him used as much as he should be. Darren Waller, obvious start, but I mean that Raiders backfield, I'm not touching.
Nope, same here.
Nope. And then Chris, I mean Chargers, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, both must starts. I can't speak right now. Most starts.
Yeah. I almost value Mike Williams higher at this point in the season.
Wow.
He's been an absolute beast. I mean, Anthony Lynn just, I guess, didn't know how to use him, but now just slinging the rock. And Mike Williams is an absolute stud this year. You got to play them both. That's not a knock. But, I mean, this is a perfect matchup for both of them.
Yep. And it's a great matchup for Eckler, too. You're starting him regardless because he was a first-round pick, but I love Eckler this week against the Raiders defense.
Yeah, I think this is a massive, massive Eckler week through the air on the ground. I'm starting Williams by him. I'm starting Keenan if I have him. I'm not ready to put Williams over Keenan in terms of fantasy yet for me because Keenan's going to get his targets. But it's going to be a fun matchup. I want to see more out of the Chargers tight end room, but right now I'm not really touching much there. But that wraps it up for the slate. We talked about every game. We got one more question here from Lucius. He did clarify it's a standard league. Can he trust Robbie Anderson tonight? It seems like his last stand, and I totally agree with you. If he doesn't perform tonight, you got to start questioning it. I mean, he's got one catch for 57 yards. It was a touchdown in week 1. Week 2, he got a few targets. Not tonight. This weekend. Okay. Week 2, 38 yards receiving, and then last week just one catch for 8 yards. I mean, Robbie Anderson, are you guys done with him? Is Terrace Marshall starting to take his place?
I'm not done with him where I'm going to drop him because Terrace Marshall really hasn't shown me too much yet where he's above Robbie Anderson. But Robbie Anderson, I'm not starting at all in any of my leagues this year. I want him on the bench. Don't get rid of him. Don't drop him, but just keep him on your bench and wait. He was really, really good last year, and then he kind of fizzled out a little bit at the end. And so far this year, he just doesn't seem to have chemistry right now with Darnold, even though they played together on the Jets. I would just wait a little bit because we could see without McCaffrey for a few weeks, they get the passing game more involved, but I can't trust it to start him this week against the Cowboys.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% there with you. And we got one more. We'll get it there before we wrap up from Trey S. Full PPR, Deontay Johnson, Kenny Gallaudet, or Allen Robinson.
Ooh.
Thank you. I mean, Chris, you kick it off. This is kind of a tough one, I guess, but for me, it's easy. What are you thinking?
I'm just going to go off my gut. First thing I thought, Deontay.
I'm going with Allen Robinson. I think this is the easiest matchup he has this year. I know the Bears' offense has been so bad, but he's been QB-proof in his career. He's been matchup-proof. I'm giving Allen Robinson one last chance in my starting lineup.
Yeah, I mean, Allen Robinson, all the talent in the world. I just don't trust his QB situation
Neither
right
do
now. I don't know what's going on there. And the same thing goes with Gallaudet. Deontay Johnson,
Yep.
I don't trust his QB either. But I guess of all the guys, Deontay has excelled through his whole career so far, taking short passes, yards after the catch, making his own yards, one of those types of guys. So even if Ben Roethlisberger can only throw it 3 yards before falling down, if he gets it 3 yards into Deontay's hands, I trust Deontay to turn that into a 15, 20-yard gain. He gets a lot of targets. I just feel like he's the safest one. Trey, to clarify, Debo's his other receiver. PPR, I think Debo's safe there, yeah. But of those three, I'm Deontay. Stevie's A-Rob. Chris is Deontay. I mean, we'll see how that plays out. A-Rob, probably the best receiver there.
And I'm okay with any of these three, really, if you have to. But
yeah,
it's not a bad problem to have to choose between these three.
Right.
Not at all. Not at all. Especially in a full PPR. These are guys who see a lot of targets there. No problem, Trey. I mean,
thank
you
you,
guys
Trey,
for all the questions tonight. We appreciate you hitting us up, trusting our advice. We do our best for you. We broke down the whole slate. And all we can say is good luck this weekend. Catch us next week for the overreaction show to, kind of wrap up everything that went down, see where we were wrong, where we were right, take our victory laps. And good luck in fantasy, y'all. And you know what we say? Good night now.